Okay, guys, I think we are live. So, welcome to the October 2015 live sale. We're just kind of getting situated here. If you could let me know how the audio sounds, that would be great. I never can tell right off the top if you guys can hear me okay. So, just let me know in chat if you're having any difficulties hearing me. I know that there's only a few of you actually on the stream currently, so we'll just wait around just a little bit while we kind of sort out all the little technical details. But yeah, if you need me to speak up or turn up the microphone for any reason, just let me know in chat. The only other audio related thing, if you listen really carefully, you might hear music in the background. And that's not me playing music. Next door, there's a church, and I guess they're having some sort of outdoor gathering. They've got like those blow up bouncing cage thingies and stuff like that. So yeah, you might hear some music coming from that direction, but hopefully not. Okay, so the other thing, let's quickly go over the rules. Most people are veterans to this whole operation, but the way that these live sales work is it's best to really open up two different websites. One is tidalgardens.com and kind of open up the live sale page. So you can get to the live sale page by looking at the top left. And there's like a blinking red light for the live sale. And that'll take you to the actual page. It goes over the rules again there, but you can actually see all 160 items that we have going up today. As far as like shipping and the second website, obviously youtube.com. If you're watching this live, so it's 3:02 right now on Saturday. So if you're not watching on 3:02 Eastern, it's probably just the rebroadcast. So you really wouldn't be able to participate in the live chat portion, but the live sale itself goes on for 72 hours after this broadcast. So as far as shipping, it's $39.99 flat rate, and it's free for orders over $250. Every single time you purchase corals, go ahead and just select the local pickup / live sale option. That just zeroes out the shipping. And at the end, if you're less than $250, you can just add in the shipping module for $39.99. If you happen to accidentally pay for shipping more than once, don't worry about it. We'll refund however many shipping options that are there, because invariably somebody pays for shipping more than once by accident. It's not a big deal. Lastly, in order to actually get the item, you have to check out with it. Just having it in your shopping cart does not reserve the item or anything like that. So it's perfectly acceptable to put something into your cart, check out. Later on, put something into your cart, check out. So if at the end you might have like 5 different corals and all 5 are different orders, that's fine. We'll combine it on our end and figure it all out. And just have to pay shipping once. So, welcome. Let's hop right into things. Okay. So the way that we have these live sales set up nowadays are a little bit better organized in the sense that a lot of the corals are kind of put together, so we can kind of talk about them generally. So the first several corals that we're going to be showing are Montipora. It's a small polyp stony coral. They tend to like a lot of light and a lot of flow, but they're not quite as difficult as, say, an Acropora, but they can still be challenging in the sense that they're susceptible to some like weird diseases and some weird pests, and sometimes those pests can be really persistent. For example, Montipora eating nudibranchs, for example, are really, really challenging to get rid of. So I consider them kind of one of the more advanced SPS, but they're not nearly as challenging as, say, like an Acropora or anything like that. And sorry, I need like a lot of coffee. Like I know it's the afternoon, but I need to stay awake somehow. Oh, the other thing is, if you notice, I'm wearing like a full parka. It decided to start snowing in Ohio already. So today was the first day of snowfall, so I'm still not used to super cold weather. Okay, let's move on to coral number 2. This is our Mystic Sunset Montipora. I've mentioned this before, probably every single time that we have one of these things for sale, but they're one of the cooler encrusting Montipora because they have like if you look at the individual polyp, there's like a semicircle of bright bluish white, and then the other half of it is like a dark purple. So every single polyp, the tentacles are like half bright and half dark. So you kind of get these like little C-shaped little curves, but you kind of have to look really closely. Yeah, JT Ventilla, it's snowing already, and for whatever reason, people in Ohio, we should be used to it, but every single time it snows, the very first few days, everybody gets into a car accident because they forget how to drive. All right, moving on. Number 3. This is our green encrusting Montipora. This coral has always kind of confused me just a little bit because I'm not 100% sure it's a Montipora. The polyps themselves look a little curious, and this is the only Montipora I've ever seen that actually can extend sweeper tentacles. For a little while I thought it might have been kind of an encrusting Acropora, but the more I look at it, the more Montipora it seems. So you can kind of see how well that does for you guys. Okay, moving on, number 4 is our scarlet Montipora. This is an encrusting as well, and they're kind of interesting in that they're a bright red, but the middle of the polyp actually has a little purple center. Okay, moving on, number 5. So this is our first, or I guess our second of the plating varieties of Montipora. So this we call our red halo. You really can't see it very well on this particular specimen, but as it grows, the growth edge is like this pinkish red. So you have like these bright green polyps, bright purple base, and then you'll get this red halo as it grows. It's one of the really cool plating varieties out there. All right, next up, number 6. This is a neon green digitata. Strangely, we don't have a ton of branching Montipora. They tend to be a little bit more common, but it seems like the vast majority of our stuff seems to be either encrusting or plating. But yeah, this is one of the branching varieties. All Montipora grow pretty quickly. But by the way, like feel free to toss questions into chat. You can see the chat on the screen as well. And I'm trying to pay better attention to chat. So kind of have like things side by side, so I have to kind of look back and forth. But if you do have questions about a particular coral, feel free to toss that in, and either we'll get to it via like the text itself, or I'll try to answer it in stream. I should probably mention who all is here. The person behind the camera is Robbie. Usually he's the one chatting with you. Unfortunately, Matthew couldn't make it to this particular broadcast, and he's usually like the camera guy, so Robbie's taking his place. And so the person you're chatting with in the chat session is actually my mom. So behave yourselves. And I've already told her that she has like full authority to ban whomever. So we'll see how well that goes as the stream goes on. All right, next up, number 7. This is our Montipora setosa. There's like two different types of Montipora that look like this. There's the Setosa and there's the Orangi. They have like a really, really cool, obviously, orange color. It's an orange base, orange polyp. But if you look at the spacing of the polyps, they're super far apart. And that gives the entire coral a very smooth appearance. The Setosa tends, their coloration is slightly different from each other, but almost identical. I think the Orangi might be a little bit lighter even. But the Setosa is branching. And it's a very irregular branching variety in that it doesn't grow kind of like the digitatas that you saw previously. They form like these little hooks and random kind of growth forms as they get larger. So it's a very interesting piece. The Orangi that we'll see later, it's an encrusting. So if you're into like this type of appearance that has the branching look, this is the one for you. Okay. Number 8. This is our Undata. This too is an encrusting variety. It's kind of interesting in that it's got ridge-like patterns across the surface. So the ridges show up as a light purple, and the polyps are like a brownish purple, and all the polyps kind of reside in the valleys. So you have this ridge and valley appearance on this Montipora. Yeah, no, I'm really not sure why it has such a weird shape. It's the only Montipora that I've seen that has that type of growth form, and that's kind of what makes it unique to itself. What kind of flow and light for the Setosa? We keep it under, I guess, moderately bright LEDs. So in one tank, I know that we have some Aqualumination Sol Blues. It's a very old lighting fixture. But in that tank, it's probably about 35% power on the whites and 100% power on the blues. And it seems to do pretty well there. Montipora can take a lot of flow. And usually you can adjust them to very, very high light. And like overall, I think that they do a lot better in higher flow, higher light conditions. So yeah, give that a go. But as with anything, always, I guess, err on the side of lower light because you can do a lot more damage with high light. Imagine it's like a sunburn versus not getting enough sunlight because of like vitamin D deprivation or whatever. So if you don't have enough sunlight, it's not good, but the problems are just going to manifest over like months. Whereas if you're cooking under like direct sun and you're getting sunburned, that's going to be a 72-hour and you're dead problem. So that's kind of the issue with corals. If you're at all worried, lower the light. Okay, number 9. This is the Spongotes, Montipora Spongotes. They kind of have like a brownish body, but their tips get this really, really cool bright green color. This is also one of like the kind of the curious growths, just because this is a branching variety. But as you get towards the tip, it gets this that ridge shape, kind of like an undata. So like the ridges are bright green, and the valleys are where all the polyps remain. Okay. I should probably try to pick up the pace just a little bit, just because we have 160 to go through. But who cares? I mean, if we go over, who cares? It's like a 2.5 to 3 hour podcast. It's more fun for everybody, right? All right, number 10. This is that Orangi that I was talking about. It's a little overexposed. Might need to darken it just a little bit to kind of see the detail. But you can see how the polyps, again, are pretty far apart. And yeah, this is the encrusting version of the Setosa. Okay, next up, number 11. It's our standard green plating Montipora. I think we're finally getting to that point in the season where a lot of our SPS are just starting to look good. If you've kind of followed us throughout all our previous live sales throughout the summer, you can go back and watch them even, and you can see just how different all of these look just from a couple months ago. So once the photo period shortens, we've noticed that a lot of like the coloration comes back. So I expect from like now until probably February is like kind of peak coloration for our corals. Yeah, so we started with the SPS this time, Entity. It's actually which is just Montipora. We were kind of mixing it up, like right around I guess like coral number 99. We're gonna get into some Acroporas and things like that again, but it's kind of mixed up. Okay, number 12. This is the purple sand dollar Montipora. Nice pink polyps and a kind of a light bluish base. Zoidberg. I need context. All right, 13. This is a giant Recordia Yuma. I'm not sure where we got this guy from, but he's by far like the largest one that we've seen. I mean, it's probably a good, like if you like see my hand here, it's probably like this big when it's fully extended. So it's at least a good 5 times bigger than a typical one that I'm used to seeing. It's super big.
I'm super happy.
Yeah, super extended. All right. Next up, number 14. It's our green marbled Discosoma. We've got several different types of mushrooms here. The Discosomas, you can propagate yourself by cutting them, but it's kind of a challenge to get them to reattach to substrate. So like the most important thing if you're going to cut them is to make sure that there's a little piece of substrate that it's still attached to. Excuse me. But if you don't really want to propagate them, they will propagate themselves. They kind of scoot along and leave behind pieces of their foot, and that foot turns into like a new mushroom on its own. So you don't really have to go out of your way to propagate these things. Next up, purple Rhodactis. Might need that a little bit brighter, Robbie. It's kind of dark. There we go. So all of our mushrooms are kind of mixed up. So you have like Rhodactises, Recordias, and Discosoma all kind of mixed together here. So this is our purple. Pretty straightforward. It's a solid purple. And you can definitely propagate these guys just by cutting them. And they attach a little bit easier than the Discosoma. The Discosoma tend to have a very, very light grip on whatever substrate they are. So there's always a risk associated with Discosoma as far as like them getting detached. And if they get detached, they kind of roll around a bit. So that's why you want to pay special attention to whether or not they're attached. Rhodactises have a much stronger grip, so it's less of an issue. Okay, 16. Okay, so yes, that label actually is correct. So the reason why we call this a yellow spotted Discosoma, so it's got a red base and what looks like these purple dots. Could you lighten that up just a little bit, Robbie? It's like super dark. There we go. So what looks like blue spots, this is under more or less a 10K light. We're using a combination of, what are these? Aqua Blue Special and Blue Plus LEDs. Or T5, I'm sorry. We only shoot under fluorescence. So if I say LED, I'm lying. It's all under T5. So under like more of like this 14K-ish T5, you're gonna see them look blue. However, under full actinic, and in that sense, like full actinic LED, so you get the very, very blue coloration, those blue spots actually fluoresce yellow. So it's a very interesting like red and yellow mushroom under full actinic. Okay, moving on, 17. And we'll get there in a second. So yeah, the stream didn't go down or anything like that. Whenever it just turns black like this, like that, it's we needed to move the slider. I mention that every single time, but usually like there's like a quick little panic in chat sometimes about it. But no, we're just moving the slider. We only have a 3-foot slider, so we have to scoot the entire cart over and get all that situated here. There we go. Okay. So we are looking at number 17. This is a purple discosoma. It's a light purple base and bright blue little spots. Do you still have the flatworm problem? I'm trying to think if... I mean, clearly there's flatworms in every single system that we have here, because there's actually pests of every kind in every single system that we have here. But as far as flatworms on mushrooms, it was really kind of easy just to give a lot of these guys a dip. So, I mean, that's on a scale of 1 to 10 as to how difficult flatworms on mushrooms are. It's like a 1.5. It's nothing. Typically, like flatworm issues, unless it's like an Acropora eating flatworm, those can be a little bit more difficult. But flatworms are really easy to handle overall. You just need to like constantly dip. But there's like some things that you can constantly dip and they just never go away. So yeah, as far as like that stuff goes, it's not a big deal. And we also have some of the rust-colored flatworms that just sit on your glass that are kind of annoying. And there's fish that eat those, but after a while they stop eating them, so we kind of have to like rotate in different fish to eat those. Certain damsels and stuff like that. All right, 18. This is our green spotted discosoma. Okay, 19. So compare the size of the previous giant Recordia Yuma to this one. So this is like a tiny little itty bitty frag, but this guy, when you're looking at it just under actinic, fluoresces super bright yellow. Like the base of him that's looking purple right now, pretty much doesn't fluoresce at all. So that just turns black, and all you see is like the bright yellow highlights. He's a tiny little guy. But we've probably had him for at least a couple years. We have this system in the far back that's kind of just like a mishmash of neglected, just totally neglected stuff. So yeah, sometimes like we just discover little treasures like this and just bring them to the forefront. Okay, number 20. Have a neon green Rhodactis. You'll notice like the widest variety of different types of appearances in Rhodactis as far as mushrooms go. Like pretty much all their different polyps, or I should say their tentacles, have a very different appearance from one another. Some can grow like just to be about 1 inch. Some can grow to be like 12 inches. So there's tons of different species of them and huge differences in morphology. Guided by chaos. How long does it take to get to the size of the other one? It probably never will. I would expect that little guy there will spend about a year getting to maybe 2 inches max, whereas the other one is like already about 3.5 inches. It's what? Oh. Guide by echoes or guide by echoes? I just read chaos. Funny. Can't read. 21. This is the blue spotted mushroom. So this is kind of similar to that yellow spotted, except that the blue spots here actually still fluoresce blue. Sometimes, like a lot of our naming conventions as far as coloration is kind of dictated by what they look like when they're just fluorescing under pure actinic. So sometimes like our coloration just might be completely goofy sounding, but it's because of how it's fluorescing. Because really, that's kind of what the interesting part is, I think. So, guided by echoes. Yeah, I just can't read. Sorry, guys. Okay, moving along. 22. Green marbled mushroom. I think that mushrooms are kind of the next big thing that people are really getting excited about. There's always some coral that's very hot at any given time period. Sometimes it's zoas, sometimes it's acros. Lately, for the longest time, it's been chalices and acans before chalices. And you can pretty much tell why. It's a lot to do with coloration and things like that. Especially with acans and with chalices, huge, super vibrant, super fluorescent colors, and they've kind of commanded a very, very high price in the marketplace. Excuse me. But I think that mushrooms are going to be the next really big thing. For example, there was a mushroom at Macna that sold for $3,400 for a single mushroom. It's one of those bounce mushrooms. So clearly there's some enthusiasm for a lot of the different mushroom varieties that are out there. Okay, 23. This is our sapphire snowflake Rhodactis. Again with the Rhodactis, look how different the little tentacles on this guy looks compared to some of the previous Rhodactises that we've shown. And that one that ended up selling for $3,400, it is a variety of Rhodactis, and so it's like these pronounced little bubbles that you're seeing on this one. On those bounce mushrooms, they almost take up the entire coral. You almost can't even see their base sometimes. That's how prominent the bubbles are. So this one won't have that appearance, but you can already tell just how different it looks like from other Rhodactis. So I don't know, JT, you know, so I was born obviously in a very tropical climate, and it took about 30 years for me to appreciate snow. But believe it or not, winter's now my favorite season. I can't stand the summertime, and I think a large part has to do with just this business does so much better in the wintertime. Okay, 24. Let's move on. This is our orange Rhodactis. Yeah, in Ohio here, in the summertime, it gets to be 100 degrees Fahrenheit on certain days. About a handful of days it'll get that hot. And on the coldest days in the winter, it's minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's a huge challenge keeping coral in like a greenhouse. Here especially, because that's like obviously like a 130 degree difference. And it only takes one bad day to lose absolutely everything. So your structure has to be able to maintain consistent parameters, basically 73 to 78 degrees year round. Very, very challenging. Okay, 25. This is our yellow Rhodactis. I remember when stuff that was yellow, that fluoresced, was pretty much non-existent in this hobby. People would kind of just have to resort to like just yellow polyps and things of that sort. But now there's actually a lot of really cool things that fluoresce yellow. Okay. Next up, number 26. Yeah, so entities. Slovenia, we measure degrees in Celsius. Everybody does. There's only 3 countries that stick to the imperial system. It is Burma or Myanmar, the United States, and Liberia are the only 3 countries that still use the imperial system. So I know that the Miss Saltwater Tank got a lot of flack on my channel for making fun of the fact that the U.S. still uses the imperial system, but I kind of put those words in her mouth. I always make fun of the fact that we still use Fahrenheit and inches and yards. Ridiculous. All right, lava lamp mushroom, very cool. One of the cooler mushrooms out there. Got that fuchsia and purple base, kind of yellowish little dots there. So that little micro Aptasia on that Rhodactis, it's so small that our copper band won't even eat it. Like, it can't find it. They're super duper tiny. We try to like get all these guys over there to have the copper band, just like, you know, pick them off. But sometimes like those Aptasia are like super micro. I mean, you're actually looking at all these corals through what's called a macro lens. So I mean, these things are roughly like 3/4 of an inch at the most. And so like between 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. So if you're seeing an Aptasia that's like tiny on the screen, it's almost too tiny for the predators to even notice it. Okay, 27. We've got our neon green Galaxia. So this is a colonial stony coral. They basically add additional heads through fission, so each head can subdivide. Now, I guess the only real issue with these guys is that they're kind of famous for their sweeper tentacles, and it's entirely possible for them to extend a sweeper tentacle like 8 to 10 inches. So you always have to kind of keep an eye out for any type of aggression and give them plenty of room. Number 28. Oh, speaking of Aptasia, so like the really large Aptasia, like we use a copper band butterfly, and I kind of don't recommend you getting a copper band because they can eat probably 100 Aptasia a day very easily, and when they run out, unless they're eating some other thing, they starve pretty quickly. So we kind of recommend either going with like the Bergia nudibranchs or with peppermint shrimp, because those tend to do a better job, and they don't. Well, the Bergias will starve, but the shrimp can obviously eat a bunch of different things, so they're not likely to disappear. However, in our systems, once they get to a certain age, they get like really big, and then they just fall over dead. So in that case, that's when you start to see all the little micro guys start popping up again, because they don't have like the shrimp to mow them down. Okay, number 29. It's our wintergreen pipe organ coral. Pipe organ are so called because they have like this purplish red base, and if you ever see like a dead colony of wintergreen, or of pipe organs, I should say, they almost are like a bright red base, and like the structure of them looks like an organ. Noah, are there going to be any Sinarina this live sale? I think we have one. It's a very large one, so if you're interested in it, it's at least a good 8 inches, so you have to have plenty of room. And there are going to be plates later. All right, number 30. This is the neon green Nephthia. He's kind of angled all the way straight back, so he's actually a lot taller than he looks. He's probably almost 2 inches, 1.5 to 2 inches, but I think just you can kind of see like what part of him is in focus and what part of him is not in focus. He's kind of pointed directly back. Nephthyi are very, very fast growing. We've got some colonies here that are probably 12 inches in size that we've grown from little frags like this. Okay, next up, we've got our blue-green Sympodium. This one is fairly open right now, but these guys in particular don't like to be moved around or shipped or anything like that. So just from moving it from its original location to here for photography, sometimes they kind of get constricted and they just start to see, look, there's like a polyp on there that just closes for no particular reason. So when you do receive this coral, chances are it's not going to open for a few days. You just have to provide it, it's like the medium to high flow in lower light, and within a few days it will open back up again. So you just kind of have to be patient with those because they do not like a lot of contact. They don't like shipping or anything like that. Otherwise, they are a fairly fast-growing, easy to care for soft coral once they're in a stable system. Okay, next up, number 32. We've got our green star polyps. We call these our balloon variety because the center has a very bright, almost yellowish green. The other variety we have that unfortunately is not a part of this live sale, you might have seen pictures of it in the past or seen it in a previous live sale, but it lacks that almost that white center. This stuff is super fast growing. A lot of times people can kind of consider it a beginner weed. For the longest time we struggled keeping it, believe it or not. But what we've noticed is that if you have like nuisance algae issues, it can grow, like the algae I should say, can grow really easily on that purple base. So you have to provide it really, really strong flow. And if you provide it strong flow, it'll do a lot better and grow a lot faster. Oh, good one. I'm glad that the Sympodium's doing well. Yeah, that's always a concern as far as like just shipping those, because I know that they don't ship. Well, they don't die during shipping a lot, but they stay upset once they arrive a lot. So it's always kind of a concern of mine. Okay, moving on, number 33. In a little bit. Just capping the camera so we can move the whole rig. Hey Evans Reef, what's up? Glad you could make it. No, sorry, no Pseudocornectus this time. Okay. Number 33. Got a small little frag of birds of paradise, Acropora. You can see it's already starting to get its better fall coloration. Usually they have like a yellowish greenish base and like purple polyps. Next up, it's a pink Polypora. So if you're looking to get into SPS but really haven't had a lot of experience with a lot of the small polyp stonies before, things like Bird's Nest and Polypora are a decent place to start. They're a lot more forgiving than, say, Acropora, certainly. And to a large degree, they're a lot more stable than Montipora. They can give you a lot of the same aesthetics. So you can get like the branching varieties that that clearly are that branching SPS, but you don't kind of inherit those complications as far as like how difficult some of them are to keep. Like Acropora, they can be very, very challenging even if you have dedicated systems for them. Whereas these, pretty much like medium light, medium flow, as long as you're not completely slacking on water changes or anything like that, they should do okay. And yes, we've got a few different types of easier, I should say, SPS coming up. So Next up, number 35. This is a neon green Stylophora. Stylophora and Polypora always look really close to one another, and I always have a hard time kind of describing what the difference is exactly between a Polypora and a Stylo. Their polyps just seem a little bit different. So when I see the two side by side, I can always tell, or even individually, I can always tell, but I cannot articulate exactly what I'm seeing that looks so different. But yeah, so this is a stylo, and the next one, number 36, is also a stylo. This is our multicolored Stylophora. Right now it's mostly purple, but it also develops a little bit of pinks and yellows depending on lighting. SPS in general, they can shift pretty dramatically depending on the lighting. Now that neon green one is very consistent in terms of its appearance, but stuff like bird's nest, especially like a Panape bird's nest, for example, or like this multicolored stylo, depending on the light that you give it, it's going to have some pretty dramatic differences in what color is expressed. Like, it's entirely possible if you hit this with a lot of light, it'll look much more pink. In lower light, they tend to be a lot more purple. Things like that. Metal 112524. Which ones can bail out? I think technically they all can, but Polypora are kind of famous for it. What we're talking about is polyp bailout, where when a colony is stressed, the individual polyps can separate from the skeleton, kind of float around the tank. Most of them die during this process because they are stressed out, but they can recolonize in new locations in the aquarium. So a lot of times, people that kind of have a slightly neglected reef aquarium might notice that their Polypora had died or something like that, and their stuff kind of goes all over the place, and eventually they just get little colonies of Polypora reemerge. Okay, number 37. This is our yellowbird's nest. And for the first time in a long time, this actually looks yellow. Usually, the reason why we call this the yellow is the skin of it is yellow. The polyps themselves tend to have like a green fluorescence, but even the green is very light. Michael Wiley, how much flow did you have the pipe organs in? The skeletons tend to collect detritus, which slowly chokes them out. So people take a turkey baster and try to blow water at the skeletons. Yeah, I think that in general, pipe organs do require heavier flow because of that reason. That and also the green star polyps tend to accumulate a lot of detritus at their base for some reason. What? Oh, okay. Number 38. This is another pink Polypora. There's a few different types of Polypora that we have that they're all what I would consider just pinks, but they're all slightly different. I don't like to go out of my way to name really, really, really similar corals something different, but you can kind of see just morphologically that this one has a little bit more of a light purple coloration. All of these SPS you can pretty much frag whenever you feel like it. There's no real size requirement, and they're so small that they're not really gonna have any issues with flow or anything like that. Once a colony gets very large, flow becomes a much bigger issue because the inside of the colony tends to not get as much flow, and that can kind of start dying off from the inside. But when they're just frags like this, you can very easily just cut a little snip off, but you just have to be kind of patient to let it both then regrow. Okay, 39. It's another neon green stylo, a little smaller one this time. As far as flow, I mean, we always kind of like talk about the different, like how much flow do things need and things like that. I've noticed that more often than not, we tend to keep things in low flow, and I have a feeling that they would do a lot better if they were in higher flow. We're just kind of restricted by how many outlets that we have here, and how many pumps we can really have active at any one given time. So unfortunately, we're kind of like strapped as far as that goes. But we tend to try to stay lower on light and higher on flow whenever possible. Okay, next up, number 40 is a pink bird's nest. I don't recall if we have a Panape bird's nest on this particular broadcast, but the difference between like a pink and a Panape is that the Panapes can really change color pretty dramatically, as we mentioned before, whereas the pink stays very consistent in coloration. I mean, the pink itself might change a little bit, but you're not going to get a wholesale color change like you will with some of the other ones. So if you're looking for something that's going to stay consistently pink, this is the one. Okay. Number 41. This is one of our green Acropora. Small frag, but these things grow so very quickly. I mean, it's entirely possible for them to double in size in less than a month. And again, these kind can do the polyp bailout thing, but you really wouldn't want them to. It's not a good sign when they start to do stuff like that. Okay, next up. It's another colony of pink Acropora. Slightly different than the last one. You see this one is a little bit more reddish, whereas the previous one was more pink, purplish. Welcome, Bruce Hansen. Glad you could make it. Acropora, bird's nest, Stylophora, they all grow pretty quickly. Of the three, I would say that the Stylophora might be the slowest growing, but it's not slow growing by any stretch. It's a pretty fast growing coral. The fastest, probably the bird's nest. Okay, number 43. It's a small golden Leptoseris. I like these guys because that bright orange coloration, those streaks almost look like they're metal. That's why we kind of call it like gold, because it looks like 24 karat gold. So I've never tried it on the stream, but if you are late arriving, I think you can scrub back to like an earlier part and then skip ahead to live. I don't know if you guys have ever tried that, but it might work. So if you missed a particular coral in the past. But yeah, so far we've gone over some Montipora, some mushrooms, and some soft coral, and now some easier to keep SPS like stylos, Acropora, bird's nests, and now we're taking a look at some of the Leptoseris. Leptoseris do not grow slow, Evans Reef. No, they're actually one of the faster growing guys. And you can tell by the price. These are like $30. There was a day and time when something about this size would have been like $150. And it's really because they're so easy to propagate and they grow that quickly. Number 44. It's an Ultra Leptoseris. These guys have green centers, but the green extends all the way out to the rim. And you'll see later we have a jack-o'-lantern, which looks slightly different, where the centers are a little bit more yellow, and they kind of stay localized to the center. They don't kind of extend all the way out to the edge like these guys do. Okay, moving on, number 45. It is that jack-o'-lantern. So you can kind of see what I'm talking about there, like the bright greenish yellow eyes. And for the most part, it's only that center that stays that color. Okay, guided by echoes. He tried it and it does work. So you're able to scrub back and forth. If I'm like babbling too long at a particular coral and you wanted to kind of catch up, there's always that opportunity to do so there. So these guys, as far as color change, they do not. I mean, they're one of the most consistent as far as their coloration goes. Like summertime, wintertime here, a lot of our corals dramatically change. However, these guys typically do not. Okay, 46. This is a much larger golden Leptoseris. The previous one was a small little frag. This guy is looking like it's covering an entire 1-inch plug. Evans Reef, Halloween. So, it's not set in stone yet, but I'm thinking about having another live sale on Halloween. So that would be in 2 weeks. Let me know in the chat if you guys are up for a second live sale this month of October. Still thinking about it. I probably will, but nothing set in stone. Number 47 is a really large neon green Leptoseris. Hopefully we have more of these, because otherwise I really shouldn't be selling this one. We should be fragging it. But I think we have got another one that we can cut later. We usually just sell those orange golden ones and the jack-o'-lanterns and things like that. But yeah, this is like a bright fluorescing neon green variety. Metal. How do these Leptoserises grow? They are an encrusting type, so they'll pretty much take on whatever shape. But they do kind of have that wrinkled pattern, or that wrinkled structure as they grow. But it'll pretty much take the shape of whatever substrate it's on. So we have a lot of folks chiming in yes on the 2nd October live sale. So if we do one, I'll have to come up with a Halloween costume. $48. So let me know in chat, like, what do you think in terms of a Halloween costume? Gonna get some curious answers, I'm sure. So we're on to Cyphastrea now. Cyphastrea are, I don't know, one of the cooler corals, I think. They are super duper low light. We can only sell these things in the winter months, because as soon as you get into spring and summer, they completely all lose their color here. They all turn brown. They all turn really unhappy. And you can't even differentiate them from one another very easily. So we have to kind of like all hide them underneath like some really, really dark place and just hope they don't die. So right now you're pretty much seeing them at peak coloration. Or at least they're well on their way to peak coloration. This is the Harlequin variety, which has like purples, yellows, reds going on. You really can't give these guys a dark enough system. We've grown them in impossibly low light, and they look absolutely incredible when you do so. Okay, number 49. This is the green-eyed Cyphastrea. It's got green polyps on a purple base. They're like Cyphastrea in general. They're encrusting. So they'll pretty much take the shape of whatever substrate that they're on. And they're pretty fast growing once they get going. They grow like almost like a very, very thin sheet. Like super, super thin. But yeah, they're pretty dramatic in terms of coloration. Okay, number 50. This is a meteor shower Cyphastrea. There's some debate as to whether this is a meteor shower or like a different variety that's slightly different in coloration called like a jingle bells or something like that. But it's basically the same sort of color. It's got red polyps on a blue base. The lighting is going to dictate to some degree what color these will take. I think the jingle bells is supposed to have like more of a greenish sheen. The meteor shower has more of a bluish sheen on it. But like I said, lighting has a huge thing to do with it. As far as flow, Isaac, it's neither here nor there. Like we keep ours in pretty low flow, so they seem to do just fine in that. We've never really blasted them with a ton of flow or anything like that. So shipping price, there's it's $30.99 flat, or it's free over $250. There's pretty much no way that price is going to go down. If you wanted to go try to price out how much shipping would be retail to your location, I'd be surprised if it was under $70 or $80. If you happen to have like a shipping account through your company or something like that, that is steeper or a better discount than ours, we're more than happy for you to send us a shipping label and we'll use that. But shipping is incredibly expensive, so it's not likely to ever go down for us. Ever. Shipping is crazy expensive. 51. It's a pink Cyphastrea. So if you wanted to save on shipping, order over $250 and it'll be free. Let's see. And that was the last of the Cyphastreas. Now we're going to be moving on to the next one here, 52. This is a freak hair Pavona. The freak hair has a purple base and like these fluorescent green tentacles. I would not trust FedEx Ground with shipping because there's absolutely no guarantee whatsoever that they're going to do same day, even if it's in one zone away. FedEx Express guarantees overnight. However, yeah, like shipping is like really weird when it comes to shipping live coral. So live coral, like anything live, is not covered under FedEx's insurance policy. So if there's a DOA, it is 100% covered by us. So whenever we do like refunds or anything like that, there's no like insurance claim that goes to FedEx or anything like that. It is purely on us. They don't guarantee anything as far as that goes. Also, if there's like a storm or something that causes a delay in FedEx, basically anytime that FedEx can say it is delayed because of blank reason, you won't get anything back in terms of like your shipping cost either. So like if you file like a shipping claim, it's like, nope, it's denied because there was a snowstorm or denied because of fog or something like that. The only way that you ever get those back is like if they're just late on a regular shipment where nothing went wrong, which is somewhat seldom, but it happens. Yeah, anyway, like shipping. Learn a lot about shipping doing this type of business. Okay, number 53. Orange Pavona. I was comparing my shipping rate with one of my suppliers who does a ton of shipping, and our percentage is off by about 20%, okay? Which is like, obviously it's very significant. 20% is huge. But our shipping volumes are off, so like he obviously gets a deeper discount because he ships a lot more, okay? For me to get to his level of shipping discount, which is only 20%, mind you, which would be like $8 to $10 maybe, who knows, depending on the size of the box. For me to get to his level of shipping discount, I think I need to send out, in terms of packages, $300,000. So that's not like in value of product. That's in shipping fees that I pay for. It has to be like that much more. So shipping, it's one of those things. Sorry guys, it's really expensive. Okay. Hopefully one day I will be having credit card bills from FedEx of $300,000. So that means I'm shipping a lot more coral, but I'm not exactly very close right now. 54, yellow Leptoseris. guys are getting all this like inside knowledge of like of shipping in this industry. It's pretty wild. What? Okay, moving on. 55, orange Leptoseris. These are really our two. It's a little dark over there. So Leptoseris, it's kind of similar to Cyphastrea. They tend to like lower light. They're an encrusting variety of coral. Evans Reef, do you guys sell frag disc plugs? We do through our sister company, Advanced Reef Aquarium. So Advanced Reef Aquarium does like all the dry goods stuff, but I will tell you in advance that we are working to bring that all under Tidal Gardens. There were some reasons originally why we had like two different companies. And believe it or not, again, a lot of it had to do with shipping, just how different you work with shipping for dry goods versus livestock. When you kind of have those two mixed together, like how do you deal with that? How do you separate the two out? It's kind of a headache. But we're trying to work through that. And so we're going to eventually bring all the dry goods stuff under Tidal Gardens, because even as I mentioned this, you probably don't even know what Advanced Reef Aquarium is, even though the two sites are like literally connected. Regardless. Yeah, we do have some frag plugs. Okay. Number 56 in a little bit here. So the first hour has gone by already, pretty fast. So hopefully you guys like these streams, because I think this stream we're going to go way over. I'm talking way too much and not showing you enough coral. It's going to be like a 3-hour one, I can just feel it. We have like over 100 more to go. Okay, 56. We have a pink and gray chalice. Okay. So chalices, I mention this every stream, but there's like a huge variety of chalices. It's a big blanket category that covers all different types of different genus of these guys. So a lot of times like care requirements are kind of muddled because of that. Some do well in higher light than others. Some do well in higher flow than others. Some grow differently. Some grow at different speeds. This is one of like that's a medium as far as like the growth rate. And whenever like I show any chalice, just kind of default to like medium flow, medium light. All right, number 57. It's another pink and gray chalice. This one seems to have like a brighter pink eyes. I don't know if these two are really that different from one another or if they were just in different tanks. My mother insists that they are different, but then again, I think that like we kind of disagree on what is different enough to be called different. So, anyways, I'll let you guys decide. I call them both pink and gray chalices because they're both pink and gray. It's like I have a very simple mind sometimes. Number 58. Can you hear that? Somebody's car alarm went off. Okay. Hills Have Eyes chalice. This is a very, very fast-growing variety that we've had for a long time now. Here in Afghanistan, pink chalices cost around $80. For a long time in this country, they would be about that much as well. It's very easy to propagate chalices, but you do have to kind of worry about how well they heal. Certain ones don't heal very well from cutting. Okay. 59. This one it's called a Hollywood Stunner, and this is starting to get that mutant orange coloration. If you have them in very low light, sometimes, so like the polyp that's on the bottom right, let me see if I can point to it. That polyp there, sort of, at the very bottom there is starting to get orange. And so once they start to develop that coloration, like half the polyps will be orange, half the polyps will be green. Yeah, Miss Saltwater Tank wants me to send her coral, and we just can't do it. Like, as much as we talk about shipping, international shipping is its own monster. I'd like to figure out one day, but it involves a lot of permits. It's extremely expensive, and it's actually involves a lot of travel on our end just to get to a place. Like, we have to go to either New York or Chicago to actually send it out. It has to go through a Fish and Wildlife office and stuff. It's pretty insane. Entity, when are the plates coming? My guess, it's going to be right around 130 something. So we're on, well, now number 60. Let's go ahead to the next one. This is our golden eye chalice. We call them golden eyes for like the longest time. It's basically red with bright yellow eyes. Who knows, maybe one day we'll have like an EU branch of Tidal Gardens. But that would involve me actually ever going back to the EU. The last time I was there was when I was 17, I think, in high school. So it's been a little while. I'm sure very many things have changed. 61. This is the yellow and purple chalice. So this is very funny. This looked completely different when I saw it yesterday. It's looking mostly purple right now, but believe it or not, the fluorescence that's associated with this coral is more yellow. So the more actinic you hit this with, the more it glows yellow. And I'm not talking about just the eyes, but the body itself has a yellow fluorescence. Evans Reef, do you know of any frag shows coming up? No. There was just one in Cleveland, I think, like last week or something. We no longer do frag shows just because they tend to be like a lot of work, and I'm getting more and more hermit-like as I get older. Number 62. It's an insane carnival chalice. These guys are like pinkish purple, and the little speckles that you see are like bright fluorescent green. And the speckles are kind of neat because they're kind of irregular. They're not just like little single dots. Sometimes they get like different splotchy patterns. Yeah, there's Lear in February. I think that same weekend in February, there's one in like Lansing, Michigan. There's a lot of them in the Midwest. Before, there used to be like two. There used to be the Cleveland one that was set up by Cece, and there's a Columbus one set up by Cora. And since then, I think that there's a bunch of them. There's like 2 or 3 in Dayton now. There's one in like Detroit, Ann Arbor area in Michigan. There's a Pittsburgh one. There's a Cincinnati one. So within a 3-hour driving radius, you could probably hit, no joke, like 6 to 8 different frag shows. Noah, are you still doing Macna? That was a lot of work to do Macna. It's a huge expense, huge amount of like labor, and it's like borderline mental breakdown as far as stress level. So I will very likely be going to the one in San Diego, but I'm not going to be an exhibitor. I'm just going to go there, hang out, shoot video, talk to people, that sort of thing. In other words, actually try to enjoy myself rather than try to actually set up a booth, because that was some crazy amount of work. Okay, number 63 is our Cyclops chalice. We fragged these guys recently, and they healed pretty well. Their base is actually what is very cool. That light blue color is probably the most fluorescent part of this guy. Yeah, so like as JT Ventilla suggested, there's 2 websites, Frag Swapper and Reef Trader, and a lot of the different reef clubs that put on frag swaps, they that's kind of like a matchmaking system for like people selling coral and people buying coral. You can reserve stuff that people are putting up there, but you can also see just which groups are doing a show and when they're going to be doing those shows. 64. Pink and blue chalice. Kind of similar to our pink and gray chalice before, but this instead of the gray, this is more of like a fluorescent blue base. So I have a kind of a funny story as far as our past experience with frag shows. It's commonplace for a lot of people to lower their prices at the very end. So like people give discounts just to kind of like just so they don't have to go home with it. But we're kind of like the exact opposite. Like we don't want to even stay that long. So as soon as it starts to get like later into the show, we kind of prided ourselves on how fast we can like pack up our setup and leave. So as soon as like the raffle starts, we start packing up. And I think like pretty much like before like the second or third raffle item even goes up, we've exited the building. 65. It's a second pink and blue chalice. Soft corals, we did our soft corals earlier, and I don't think that there's any more in the live sale. So yeah, you might have to scrub back into like the early teens to see some of the soft corals. We did like some green star polyps and a couple leathers, things like that. Mushrooms. A lot of mushrooms. 66 is the lunar chalice. '67 is going to be a mystery chalice once we get there. So, one thing that that I can say is that I'm gonna try to get some more folks to be like guests on our YouTube channel in general. So Miss Saltwater Tank was kind enough to do some of the fish videos for us. In the future, we're going to collaborate a little bit more on different types of fish. A lot of times it's going to come down to what I can get good footage of more than anything. But we'll try to get some really interesting different types of fish for you guys, and we'll kind of discuss kind of the ins and outs as far as that goes, because we don't really do a ton of fish. Obviously, it's a very coral-centric business. But I also want to get Nathan on. I want to also get one of our suppliers on, so we can have like a more fleshed out discussion of, just the different stages of this hobby. Obviously, you're getting a very retail-centric experience just from talking to me, but there's a lot to know about wholesale and importing and and what it's like to also just be like a very high-end retail level collector. So I wanted just to bring in those perspectives. So expect to see some other folks other than myself on this channel for once. Entity, there's going to be a lot of zoanthids coming up. Okay, so what number are we on? 68? Okay, good. It's a smaller mystery chalice. This one actually might be one of our cosmic chalices. Like there's not a lot of difference between the mystery and the cosmic, but the cosmic always has like these little blue speckles, and as the season gets darker, this coral gets darker, and it'll be almost black come February, and with those like light little blue speckles makes it kind of look like something you might see in space. Entities like having fun like pointing out all the little aptasia that he sees. It's like the Where's Waldo of the stream. 69. Yeah, just wait till you see like the zoanthids. I'm sure you can pick up plenty. 69 is the Duncan, Australian Duncan. Yeah, Robbie might have to just pan around just a little bit so you can even see the whole thing. It's quite large. I mean, it's a much larger piece than most. How many polyps are on there, would you say? Two polyps. Okay, number 70. Our zoas. These are Leonardo's. A little bit dim. So if you could brighten that up just a little bit, that'd be good. There we go. Got a huge, huge section of zoanthids here. 71. There we go. Good. These are the date night zoanthids. Called date nights because like the little bow tie pattern on the face. Evans Reef, what is the biggest coral you have currently?
We have a A10 column.
On the live sale or just here? Because there's some giant ones here. But as far as like the biggest one in this live sale, it's probably going to be the Cinerina. That's going to come up way later. And we also have like, you'll definitely want to stay till the very end because we've got a really, really, really sweet colony to end this show. Number 72, moving on. It's our mellow yellow zoanthids. I don't even know what's our most expensive coral. Like in the past, I could probably tell you really easily, except they all sold, so they're all gone now. I don't know. Like I think our most expensive one might be $300-400 maybe. Not in this live sale. I think the most expensive one in this live sale is probably 200. 73. Have our magician zoas. They're called magicians because they have that little blue sparkle in the middle on an otherwise purplish pink polyp. Zoanthids are pretty easy to take care of in general. And I say in general because they're also susceptible to some of the craziest diseases, the craziest pests, from pretty much all corners of the reef. Like there's crabs that eat them, there's fish that eat them, there's worms that eat them, there's flatworms, there's nudibranchs, there's spiders, all forms of different bacterial issues like zoopox that can spring up. So you kind of have to keep your eye open for any kind of issues, because like once you've kind of handled that, it's very, very fast growing and they're very hardy. They can handle all types of flow, all types of light, but it's like they must be delicious or something, that delicious palytoxin, because they really get the bad end of the parasite stick, I guess. 74. These are the cat's eye zoas. So if you look really carefully on the polyp itself, there's these little white marks on the actual tentacles. Under full actinic, those fluoresce a very different color than the rest of the polyp. So you kind of have these like a very purple looking thing with this pronounced kind of like a ring of just those little dots from the tentacles. Evans Reef, have you ever checked out Bluefish? It's probably an hour from you. Believe it or not, I do not go to other stores at all, like ever. And it's like nothing personal against those stores. It's like, I just don't shop for coral or fish like ever. It's just not a thing for me. So I can't even remember the last store I ever even went to. It's been a really long time. Maybe Two Turtles, which is like a local store here for, I don't even know. Like I don't get out much. 75. Can you keep an ultra low nutrient system and keep zoas? Possibly. I'm not really sure. One of my customers is named Will, and his tank is featured on this channel. He ran an ultra low nutrient system first with like that Red Sea stuff, the carbon dosing, and now he uses Zeovit, and he's having like great success according to him. So it's probably very possible. So that's 75, the cotton candy zoa. 76 is the rainbow zoa. It's always interesting to see these guys on stream because the way that we have this entire place lit, the vast majority of the lights that we use are LEDs because when we originally designed this greenhouse, we didn't think that we would nearly have this many lighting fixtures. So ideally, what I would like to have here is a lot more metal halide and T5, but unfortunately, because of our electrical situation, most of our lighting is LED just because of energy consumption. So I'm used to seeing a lot of very blue LED here. Obviously, we have sunlight, so we don't need to have like the white colored LEDs. So we see a lot of blue LED, and so seeing this stuff under T5 is always kind of interesting because it's a very, very different look. 77 is our creamsicle zoas. How often do you test your water? I have a 90 gallon. We don't tend to test very frequently here, only like once every couple weeks. However, I think that some of the more successful aquarists that have a lot better tanks than me, they'd probably do it once every week. And in general, that kind of leads into to Noah's question about dosing. If you wanted to dose something, make sure you're testing for whatever parameter that is. Like I never recommend blindly dosing just because of what's labeled on the bottle, especially with trace elements and stuff that's barely in the water to begin with. And especially if you're going to do like ultra low nutrient zeovit type stuff, you really need to be having a really, really close monitoring of nitrates and phosphates and stuff like that, because there should be some in the water, and you need to have like a high enough resolution test as well. Certain test kits you can read online. Certain test kits might not be sensitive enough, so you can pay attention to that as well. Okay, 78. These are the gauntlet zoas. What kind of doser do you recommend? I honestly don't have a ton of experience with different dosers. I think that what's generally considered for a very, very long time to be one of the highest quality dosers out there is a SpectraPure liter meter. They tend to be pretty expensive, but I haven't, like I said, I don't have a ton of experience with all the different dosers. But if I was just to have to choose something right this minute, that's probably the one that I would go with. I know that Nathan on his system, he has an automatic water change system that involves two different dosers. One that like draws about 7 gallons a day out, and one that puts 7 gallons a day back in over the course of 24 hours. And I believe he uses those liter meters. Okay. Number 79 is our Agent Orange zoas. I'm actually really happy with how our different zoas are looking right now. They look super healthy. Sometimes in the summertime they really shrink up. Also, summertime is like when all the pests come out to play. It's almost like you eradicate them all through fall and winter, and you're thinking, great, I got all this handled. And come spring and summer, they all just come out of nowhere. And it's not like we've been adding in additional coral and we're bringing them in that way. It's like they seem to come out literally out of hibernation, and we're back at it again. Next up, number 80 are some Rostozoas. Looks like there's about 5-ish polyps at least on this guy. No decorative algae. The way that we have our live cell set up, there are fox faces, and so if we set those guys in there, you would literally see them disappear by the time the camera got to them. Ecotech DC return. You know, I haven't played with those myself. Hopefully they work out really well. I like the idea of DC pumps, but as far as like I've heard up to this point, nobody has had a really good, reliable DC pump that's lasted a very, very long time. And so like the Ecotech ones have just hit the market. I know that that Vertex has ones that are like made in Europe, which might also be very interesting. But yeah, anything that can like save electricity, be controllable, be silent, I'm all for it. But I think that like just from what I remember, they had torque issues. Like all the different DC pumps had torque issues, and so they burn out very quickly or something like that. There's issues once stuff gets growing on them. 81, Mangozoas. Yeah, you'll definitely have to let us know like how you like those DC pumps, because I'm very, very, very interested in how well they work. And it's cool that they can also have their own battery backups and stuff like that. Obviously, you can imagine having a battery backup on your return pump is a big deal. Number 82. This is our Fiji Bam Bam Zoas. Okay, next up, 83, is the orange eagle eyes. So eagle eyes are a very common variety of zoa, and you know, I always hesitate to call something like beginner or like super common or anything, because clearly some of the most common corals that we have here are by far the most popular. Like of all of our zoas that we've shown, like even like the rare ones and stuff like that, the two best sellers are eagle eye zoas and radioactive dragon eyes, and it's really not close. Also with like soft corals, like pulsing xenia, which always gets kind of you know, downplayed so much just because it's like easy to find usually, or people say it's a weed. It's probably our most successful coral in terms of sales. So yeah, it's like people, you know, just tend to love the classics, I guess. This, however, the orange eagle eye is thus called because that face has a huge fluorescent orange ring that kind of sets it apart from the standard ones. Okay, next up, 84. It will be that radioactive dragon eye that I mentioned. So, radioactive dragon eyes and also eagle eyes, they come from a variety of different locations. You can find them in Indonesia, you can find them in Fiji, you can find them in Vietnam. My favorites are the ones that come out of Fiji, and I think this one is one of the Fiji ones, because they tend to have better coloration. Well, the coloration, the pattern is the same, but just the vibrancy of that color. You know, these tend to be a lot brighter, at least the centers. Number 85. It's the Fiji hypercolor zoas. Fiji zoas in general are some of the brightest and most interesting. There's a lot of interesting ones that come out of Australia as well. They tend to be like a much higher price point. They tend to, I guess, not grow as nearly as fast. But so those are my two favorite geographies for zoas. Okay, next up, 86. Some Fiji rainbow zoas. So Faraz is asking, do you guys feed hammer or torch corals? If we do, it's just from broadcast feeding. We don't really make any particular attempts to do like direct spot feeding or anything like that. Just in some of our feeding videos, you can kind of see that they tend to reject a lot of different types of food. Even if they grab it and put it in their mouth, sometimes they spit it out pretty quickly. And kind of like despite their appearance, they're not nearly that active when it comes to just grabbing food and eating it. So yeah, I don't go out of my way to feed them. They don't seem to need it nearly as badly as some of the other LPS. 87. We have two different types of these agave zoas, and like anytime you hear like something agave, it's usually from that speckle pattern, and also like a large polyp compared to some of the other zoas like the rastas, which tend to be very small. These tend to have very large oral discs and have that distinctive splotchy pattern. So this is 87. So this is the peach peppered agave. The next one is number 88, is the blue peppered agave. What do you attribute to better growth and color for zoas in the winter? Probably just lack of sun. Sunlight does a whole lot in terms of messing with a lot of corals. Like there's certainly some corals that don't mind the change in seasons, but seasonality is a huge obstacle. It just messes with lighting so much. Not so much the temperature. For a long time we thought that it was much more of a temperature issue. It's really not. We've managed to keep temperatures very stable, but it's a lot to do with photo period, I think. 89. These are some Fruit Loop zoas. Fruit Loops tend to have a lot of variance in terms of just how vibrant certain parts of the coral are. So these in particular kind of have like a dusky orange coloration on the tentacles, but we've seen others that have a much lighter and brighter orange and more muted green on the face. So there's like I would say there's a spectrum when it comes to the Fruit Loops as far as their appearance goes. So Evans Reef is not getting sound. Is it everybody else getting sound okay? Just let me know in the chat if you can still hear me. Okay, let's move on to number 90, the lotus petals. And there's a little small Leptasia on the side. No matter what, once we start getting these guys shipping, we'll give the copper band another shot at kind of eliminating these little Leptasia. But if you can imagine, it's about the size of one of the little polyps, so they're very tiny. He sometimes just glosses over them. But the lotus petal we haven't had for a very long time. I honestly thought that we ran out of them or something. Sometimes we just sell out of a particular type. But these guys have like these concentric lime green rings, lime green and purple. Okay, good. Looks like sound is still working on my end here, so hopefully Evan can fix his sound. Maybe refresh the stream, perhaps. Okay, 91. The Pastafarian zoas. I've also seen these called blondies, but I think the blondies tend to have slightly different coloration on the face. So this looks a lot more green on my screen. In person, they tend to be more yellow. That's the connection with blondies. So the fluorescence, I would say, leans more yellow than it does to green. Okay, good. Just glad the sound is working. So yeah, one person I think on one of the live streams was like super duper like negative and hateful about like my audio on these broadcasts, and he said like you need a better mic or something. And it's really funny because if you saw the microphone that we're using, let's just say it's been used for the past 30 years in every Blockbuster movie you've ever watched, very likely. It is like the de facto Hollywood standard for audio. So I kind of got a kick out of that. I love YouTube comments. Like nothing ever will prepare you for like negative venom than YouTube comments. So yeah, it's funny like what people will pick out to talk trash to you about. Anyway, 92. This is our second group of rastas that we've got going on. Looks like another 5 polyps. One of the polyps is kind of closed right in the front there. Do you have Majanos? We do not. That's probably the only pest that we don't have. Majanos, they're interesting in that they are much tougher than Aptasia. So, I mean, one time we took a rock out of the water and left it sitting out dry for like a week. Ran it under hot water and everything. And after that, we put it back into the tank, and believe it or not, those Majanos survived that experience. So they're super like physically tough animals, but they're super easy to remove. Like the grip that they have on the substrate is weak, and so you can physically remove them. So if you stay on top of it, you can really get rid of them. The problem that a lot of folks have is they don't go through that process of physically removing them, and then they can spread like crazy. And I've seen certain tanks that had Majanos so thick and so dense on their rock that they started to detach and float around the tank and swim. So yeah, luckily Majanos are just one of those things that we don't have to deal with. Everything else we probably still have. Maybe not spiders. Spiders were pretty easy too. 93. I couldn't come up with a name for this one. So if you're looking for a $10 Zoa and you like the look of this, there you go. $94 is our Underworld Halo. And we tried to get that little Aptasia on there eaten by the copper band. Couldn't even find it. So yeah, like once it gets into your system, well, obviously we're gonna try to give him another shot at sniping it, but that's more in the territory of like a peppermint shrimp would handle that. You can try to inject that, except I don't think people appreciate just how small even these polyps are. That frag plug that it's sitting there, that's a ½ inch. So you're talking about something that's less than, maybe it's like close to a 1/16 of an inch. So yeah, good luck with that. And don't get paletoxin poisoning when you jab it. 95. These are some gobstopper zoas. The coloration on these guys, I expect will change slightly as the season goes on, because the green middle will become a lot more pronounced. So you have like this fluorescing pink face with a bright green middle. Okay. 96. These are called Fiji solar zoas. As far as like Fiji zoas go, this one has like a much larger oral disc than some of the other ones that tend to have very, very small polyps as far as zoas go. Coral RX doesn't really do anything with Aptasia. Coral RX is good for stuff like nudibranchs. It won't do anything for the eggs, but like flatworms, different types of worms, copepods and stuff like that, Coral RX is pretty effective at that sort of thing. Eggs tend to survive everything. They're incredibly resilient. But Aptasia, not so much. Excuse me. Your best bet with Aptasia really is to have like a predator in your tank that puts positive pressure on that population like consistently. So we can pretty much tell the moment that all of our peppermint shrimp have died, because these little micro Aptasia start popping up out of nowhere. And we only have one tank that we have our copper band in, and we just take corals to him. So like every day we try to get him at least 50 or so to nibble on. Have to keep him fed somehow. Okay, number 98. That's not quite right. Number's 97. My bad. Green people eater zoas. And I've kind of spoiled it already, but number 98 is the Miami Lobo. So there's two polyps of that guy. They have a purple center, purple rim, and an orange face. So our last video was on Cyphastrea, and so I kind of said that how Cyphastrea look very close to Lobophilia. You can kind of see why. There's also different types of Lobophilia that look a lot closer even. This is a Lobophilia hemperenchi, but there are different types of lobos that also have this a very similar growth pattern to Cyphastrea. And it's a pretty important distinction because Cyphastrea tend to be a lot more sensitive than Lobophilia. Like we don't even have a category for Cyphastrea on our website to sell because we can't keep them alive for any length of time. I mean, they usually don't even last like 7 days here. That's how quickly things go downhill. So something to think about. All right, so I think we have to move the entire setup, so I'm gonna take a break. Be right back. And the back. Like knocked something over here. Okay, so what number are we on? 99? Cool. So we're done with all the zoas. We got the that little lobo randomly in there, and now we're on to the Acropora. So we're almost getting some color out of these guys. Unlike pretty much all summer long, where if we even had any acros, they might not have had like very much in the way of distinctive coloration. They tend to brown out significantly during the summer months, and they color up a lot better, as a lot of different corals do. But Acropora in general, they can change color in 24 hours if they either like or don't like a particular condition. So we're just now starting to get some decent looking colonies. Okay, number 100. This is the purple tip Acropora. So the tips themselves are purple, but the polyps are like a lime green. Next up, 101. This is a blue acro. As far as acros go, I always like the ones that are more blue in color. Just blue corals in general are so difficult to come across. That are really blue. I see a lot of stuff that's called blue that really it doesn't even have very much blue in it, but this particular Acropora is just blue on blue. Okay, next up, number 102. So remember when I said that corals can change color very quickly? This is a fairly new addition that we picked up, and it's already changing color on us. And there's fish, if you didn't already notice. Our yellow tang wants to be a star. So the strawberry shortcakes, which tend to be a very challenging coral to frag, you can see like the little pink highlights. And the way that this colony should look once it's settled nicely and is coloring up nicely, it almost has like a greenish base with pink highlights on the tips. Now, getting it to that point, that can be a challenge because Acropora, tend to be very picky as far as the stability of the system goes. So there's always this, I don't know if it's a joke or a saying when it comes to keeping these types of corals, but SPS does not stand for small polyp stony. SPS stands for stability promotes success. And that's probably like the most important thing to consider when trying to keep one of these systems long term. It's to really never let your chemical parameters get out of whack. Never let your lighting get out of whack. Just with bulb replacements and that sort of thing. Like pretty much try to keep everything rock solid, and that will do the most for you as far as keeping these guys. Number 103. This is another blue tip acro. Slightly different variety. It's thinner branches, and both the stalk and the polyps are like a neon green color. All right, 104. It's a very small frag of our frog skin Acropora. This is a colony that we've had propagated for a very, very long time. It's probably going on a couple years now. One of the more attractive ones once they get a lot larger, and again during the middle of the winter season. But I'm pretty happy with the colors that I'm seeing already. Robbie's like shaking his head at these fish, but I don't mind them. Alright, next up, 105 is a red Acropora millipora. Millipora, you can always, I think this is a millipora. Now that I'm looking at it, it's kind of, yeah, I think it is. They have a much more furry appearance. And in particular, each polyp has a single tentacle that extends longer than the rest. Sometimes people set up entire Acropora systems just for millipora. Like, there's like some even amongst like the SPS crazy folks, they have a thing specifically for millipora. Okay, number 106 is a prismatic acro. These are a pretty cool combination of like a green, a teal, and a purple. Now we grow these under LED, and clearly it's possible to have very attractive looking SPS colonies in LED. However, I think that in general, you might have better success with something like metal halide, provided that you replace the bulbs every 12 to 14 months. Some of the most insanely colored SPS I've seen were under metal halide more so than LED. But if you've seen the video for like Nathan's tank, for example, clearly you can have very, very nice looking SPS in 100% LED. Okay, 107. This is a purple Acropora. This is quite a bit larger colony than the previous ones that we've shown. Now, another thing to consider is if you're going to do LED with Acropora like this, kind of the point light source nature of LEDs lends itself to like dramatic shading that happens. So like only the top of the colony gets light, whereas the bottom of it does not. And when that happens, sometimes that shaded region of the coral starts to die off. So one solution to that is you buy more LEDs. But another solution, which I kind of like better, is to find like a very inexpensive T5 fluorescent strip. And you can find those for less than $50 or even less used. And just put in some like daylight bulbs and have it on a timer and run it when you're not even home if you don't like the look of it. But the fact that the light is spread out over the entire length of the bulb, and you tend to get a much more robust spectrum from T5 compared to LED, it's better for your overall coral health as well. So you improve coverage and spectrum, run it for like 4 hours a day, you'll never notice it on your electricity bill, and it'll make an immediate impact on your coral health. So that's how I would go about a home aquarium system where you're primarily using LED. I would find a way to mix in that T5 if possible. 108. So we're done with the Acropora, and this is kind of an oddball as far as SPS go. It's not, you don't see them too often. They're called Samacora. They almost have like a moss-like skin. I guess like that texture looks very moss-like. They come in different colors. Unfortunately, we only have the green one to show, but I think there's some very exotic varieties out there that if you're looking for something that's kind of niche that a lot of people might not have, Samacora is definitely one of those types of SPS. Okay, 109. It's a green bubble coral. And yes, I concede it looks very white. However, those green highlights, they fluoresce, and so at night you see almost entirely green. It's I mean there's pearl varieties of bubble corals, and there's kind of like the more tan colored ones. This one I would say that it's kind of like a cross between one of the pearl colored ones and the green, but it definitely has that green fluorescence. Now it's funny, we typically don't have a lot of bubble corals on our website. For whatever reason, whenever we buy them, as soon as we buy one, it tends to struggle for like 6 months or something like that. So if you did want to buy like a small little bubble coral from us, this is probably like the best you're going to see for a little while. We don't have them very often, not as a regular stock item anyway. Okay, 110. One of these neon green kryptonite candy canes. It's one of the most fluorescent greens that you find is in the LPS world anyway. The polyps they split by fission, so one turns into two to three, that sort of thing. Next up, we have a pinwheel candy cane. That pinwheel pattern is kind of so-called because of the that alternating white highlight that goes around the outside of the body. This one in particular, you can barely see it, but there looks to be some radioactive dragon eyes or some other random Fiji zoas growing on its base. There might actually be more than just one. There might be like 2 or 3. Yeah, looks like 3. So you get some zoas and this LPS if you liked it. Oh, really? Hey, Tristan and I am icon. You just received a notification from YouTube just now. That is so strange because we've been on for like 2 hours. And Robbie is now, he's capping the system and we're moving the slider across. So nothing's wrong with your stream. We're just moving some stuff. Oh, that stinks, you guys. I'm sorry. You guys all should have gotten the. I was kind of like wondering what was up with that because we had. I kind of pay attention to the number of concurrent viewers on the stream, and it was very low up to this point. Like strangely mathematically low. Like I understand if there's 10 fewer than what I'm expecting, but not like half of what I'm expecting. And so I just look now and like there's almost double the number of people. So yeah, very curious. Luckily there's still a whole bunch of corals left to go. There's at least 50 something. So that is so weird. YouTube messing with me. Yeah, sorry about that. Not sure why you guys didn't get your notifications until now. Did anybody else like get notifications when the thing was supposed to happen? That's pretty wild. I guess that's also reason to follow us on Facebook and Twitter and other things, because I tried to put notifications on that as well. But that stinks. Oh man. 2 hours late, YouTube. Alright. So, yeah, the coral on the screen there, that's the mummy eye Favia. We're getting into our little section of large polyp stonies. So for the group that has just come, thanks to YouTube's timely notification system, we've covered a number of different SPS. We've covered mushrooms, we've covered zoanthids, and some soft corals. And we're heading now into some of the other large polyp stonies, and we're starting into the Favias. So you are able to scrub back in time to see some of the ones that we've covered already, but geez, I mean we've covered like 100 already, so good luck with that, I guess. Next up, number 113. It's a Christmas Favia. You can probably imagine why it's called that, like the red and green look. And I guess it's probably a good thing that I've kind of been going at a plodding pace because, had we gone with our normal speed, the show would be over in about 2 minutes. So at least we can probably get another good hour of discussion. So for all the people just tuning in, if you have any questions, obviously just throw it into chat. We'll try to answer your questions. 114. Orchid Favietes. So these guys have like a very light pink center, then like a ring of purple, and then like a neon green ring after that. The biggest difference to me going from like Favia to Favietes is that Favietes tend to have smaller polyps, and they grow many times faster. Favia tend to be some of the slowest growing large polyp stonies, whereas Favietes are pretty quick in that category. They can double in size relatively quickly. I can't talk. It's been 2 hours. Relatively quickly, but Favia are extremely ploddingly slow. Okay. Next up, number 115. This is the white-eyed Goniastria brain. So sometimes Goniastria is kind of lumped in with Favia. They kind of have a similar appearance. Goniastria, they tend to be a little bit more pronounced in that their ridges tend to come up higher. Favia tend to be a lot flatter. That's one thing that I've noticed. They both don't have particularly fast growth rates, so you kind of have to give it plenty of time to grow out. Number 116. Scarlet and gray Favietes. So this particular variety that we've got of the Scarlet and Gray has like the neon green centers. Some of the other ones tend to have like a bluish center of the polyp. (117). It's another Scarlet and Gray. This one I like a little bit better. It's smaller, mind you, but it kind of has that two-faced thing going on where it's like half blue, half red, and the green eyes are a little bit brighter green. There's always like some variation with color there. (118). This is the Midnight Princess Favietes. This is kind of getting towards like peak coloration because you can see how the center is very, very dark and the rim stays very bright green. I think that when these things look their best, they tend to have almost like a black center. So you can tell that it's very, very dark purple at this point. But they do even get quite a bit darker than that. Okay. 119. This is the red and green Blastomussa. Blastamussa, kind of like the Cyphastrea that we talked about ages ago, tend to like a lot lower lighting. I've seen some people keep them in brighter aquariums, but just in our experience, they tend to have the best extension in lower light. They have the fastest growth rate in lower light. Number 120. Believe it or not, this is still a Merletti. It's a much larger polyp than what's typical in Merletti. But so Blastomussa Welsies, for example, they tend to have larger polyps compared to Merlettis. Merlettis tend to have smaller polyps but are faster growing. But this actually is a type of Merletti that has polyps that are almost every bit as big as the Welsie. So the first of our Welsies is this neon green. I'm gonna have to darken that up just slightly because like it's getting completely blown out as far as like the highlights. Yeah. Well, wow. So that just gives you an idea of just how brightly this thing is fluorescing. Like that bright green is pretty out of control. Yeah. What can you do? It's very, very bright. The Welsies tend to have more vivid coloration, as you can see here. But they tend to also have like a little bit of a higher price tag generally. I like Welsies a lot. Number 122. A red and purple Blasto-Welsie. Kind of has this alternating purple and red striping. I don't know if this guy has a green mouth or not. Sometimes they have green mouths. No, this one does not, Robbie says. So the way that these grow is slightly different than the Merlettis. These guys have these buds that grow off from the main polyp, and it's usually right along their base. And it's very common for a single head of Welsie. This one currently has 2, not counting any babies. It's very common for a single polyp to immediately grow like 7 or 8 additional right there. So you get very, very fast growth just in the sheer number of polyps that spring up. Okay, number 123. This is the tricolor. Bright red, nice purple base, and bright green mouth. Thomas Stolberg, there's your shout out. Welcome. Thanks for joining. $124. This is a Platygyra, the pinstripe variety. Platygyra are a type of like a maze brain. I think the more traditional common name is a brain worm coral. Almost nobody calls them that. Everybody pretty much calls them by their scientific genus name, which is Platygyra. We only have two in this particular auction. It's not really an auction, live sale. It's this one, 124, and the next one, 125. This is the toxic green Platygyra, where the ridges are purple. There are actually two different types of purple, and then the valley is that toxic green. So in the past, Platygyra tended to be a really sensitive LPS, a little bit more touchy than some of the other brain corals that we've kept. But lately, for whatever reason, they've been very solid. So I no longer consider them even remotely challenging. I'd say they're very middle of the road in terms of LPS care. So I should probably say about LPS care, it's kind of medium across the board. We're talking about medium flow, medium light. And we're just moving the slider again. So the reason why we cap the lens, and that's why it's just black over there, is because when the slider's moving around like that, you guys don't want to see all that ridiculous motion. It's just kind of distracting. So we just cap the lens and move along. All right, 126. It's our orange acan echinata. There's three types of acants that we have: the echinata, the Lord Howensis, and the Bowerbanki. Echinatas tend to be flatter in appearance. They're roughly the same size as the Lord Howensis. However, as these things get used to the aquarium environment, they don't grow quite as large as like a Lord Howensis, which could literally quadruple in size, each individual polyp. The other thing to notice about acans is that they really can't be kept in close proximity with one another. You can keep like two different types of Lord Howensises right next to each other, but an echinata and a Lord Howensis, they'll fight to the death pretty quickly. I would kind of treat them like chalices. You really shouldn't have chalices, touching one another. So Thomas, will 126, which is what we're looking at, will that encrust rocks? Acants don't really encrust so much as they build up their own skeleton. They all kind of eventually take like a boulder shape. Okay, next up, 127. So this is a Lord Howensis. So we're looking directly at its face. Let's get a little bit more light exposure on that. And how many polyps is this? Is this just one right now? Yeah, just a single. The pinwheel gets that name from those light purple spokes on its face. Garrett Gomez, we have not shown any Euphyllia yet. We've got a few coming up. It's towards the end of the live sale. There's 160 total, so it's towards the end. Okay, next up, 128. One of my friends is going to be visiting the Great Barrier Reef pretty soon here in January. I've never been to Australia, but that's one of my places that I would like to visit. It's just very, very, very far away from here. So it's like at least over 20 hours in the plane for me to get down to Australia. So it's quite an ordeal. So I call this a rainbow acan lord. Under T5s like this, it's pretty monochromatic, but it has green and yellow fluorescence. That's partly like reflected in the price as well. I mean, if it was like one of like the ultra rainbows, it would be a little bit more expensive. So yeah, acans, they do change color quite a lot. A lot of it's going to deal with what type of lighting conditions it's under. If we had kept this around for 2 months even, it would look like a vastly different coral than what you're seeing here. In fact, we might still have this variety. So if we do like a December live sale, which I'm pretty sure we will be doing a December live sale, I'll make a special mention that it's the same one, and just let's just see how different it looks. Hey Luis, hello from Mexico. I got my diving certification done in Mexico, so I have many fond memories. Okay, next up, number 129. This is one of those other types of acans. This is a Bowerbanki. It has a much larger polyp than either the Echinata or the Lord Howensis. Flat appearance, and I guess the cool thing about this one, aside from the red, is that it has this marbled center that goes from like a light blue, almost like a teal colored, with these purple pie-shaped sections in it. Are we skipping the November live sale? No. We'll do a November live sale. Probably towards the middle of the month, I'm guessing. Probably the third weekend is Thanksgiving, right? Black Friday? Oh, I don't want to do that. Black Friday. Ugh. So I don't know if you guys around the globe know this, but there's like a U.S. holiday called Thanksgiving, and like there's like this Friday associated with that holiday called Black Friday, where everybody does like a whole bunch of different sales and stuff like that, and it's completely bonkers. Like people camp out in front of certain stores like Walmart and stuff, and as soon as the doors open, they literally trample each other to death trying to like get to the back of the store to buy some cheap electronics. And every single year there's like a death toll associated with Black Friday. It's like the most crazy consumer behavior. I have never been shopping on Black Friday. I stay in. Dave Davis, new to this, what type of growth rate on Bowerbanki? Pretty slow, I would say. They do add additional polyps fairly quickly. However, even then, they grow very slowly. Next up, 131. Oops, 130. I was getting ahead of myself. So this is a pink and green acan. You can see some of the pink highlights right around the middle near where you see the green. However, under this lighting, you won't be fully able to appreciate how pink that is, because that's one of the parts of the coral that fluoresces the most. So under an all blue actinic, the pink glow almost outshines the green glow in the center. Okay, now we can move on. So this is our UFO Micromusa. Micromusa are a different genus entirely than acans. However, they share a lot in common. They look similar. They grow in similar shapes. They tend to be kind of like a mini version of an acan lord, if you can imagine that. They both can change color pretty dramatically. I mention this every single time, but this coral is capable of completely changing its color from like yellow to red to blue to any combination of those. So depending on your lighting, this coral is going to look pretty different. An acan, okay, so Acanthastrea. So this is for JT. Acanthastrea is the genus, and everything else underneath that is the species. So an acan lord. Lord is just short for Lord Howensis. So an acan lord is a type of acan, just like an acan echinata is a type of acan, or an acan like Bowerbanki or Maxima or any of those types are just different species of the genus Acanthastrea. So hopefully that kind of clears that up. Okay, next up, 132. This is the first of our fungias. There's 3 that we'll show here. This is a bright orange one. It looks like it's probably about 3 inches in diameter. We have a few different types of fungia that we've got going on here. And in a past live sale, perhaps? Or no, it was in... We showed this fungia that has like this bright green rim in a... I think on Facebook or something. And it was one of the comments was that it was not actually a fungia. It's probably true. We call these things fungia just kind of as like a general category, but technically I think these might be like Cycloceras. There might be there's all these different types of plate corals and tongue corals that we all kind of just shove in our category of fungia plates. But there's several different genera of coral, different genus. And so if you see us call something a fungia, it's not a scientific classification for us. It's just any type of plate coral we just kind of toss into that category. Okay. 133. This is little green helmet fungia. So we call these things helmets because they're actually shaped like a little dome. And there's always a little bit of a warning sticker that we always have to kind of talk about when we're talking about these little helmets, is that when you put them into your tank, you have to make sure that there isn't an air bubble trapped underneath that little dome shape, because that air bubble will cause the flesh underneath the coral to die off, and that'll cause like the coral to recede, and it's all because of this little air bubble that was created when you initially put the coral into the water. So you kind of have to like move it upside down just to make sure there's nothing trapped underneath. These guys stay pretty small, no more than about 2 inches or so, but they do have that little mound shape to it. Okay, next up, 134. Like the green, this is the blue helmet fungia. The blue ones are much less common. I'm very, very used to seeing the greens, but I don't see the blue nearly as often. These all come from our importer. Unfortunately, we don't know how to propagate them very well. In the past, we've cut different types of plate corals, but they almost never regain their original shape, and they do it so slowly, and you lose so many to infection that it's never been really worth our effort. Isan Adib, can I get a shout out? Well, there's your shout out. Thanks for joining. Zach, I've got my orange fungia at Magna, and ever since it started to turn a yellow pastel and can't figure out why. I'm gonna guess you mean pastel versus like a fluorescent. Almost all the time that has to do with types of lighting. If you run a lot more LED, I would expect it to happen more under LED than any type of lighting, where stuff gets more muted coloration. And things like just about any coral, just in my experience, tends to color a lot better under T5 fluorescent or under metal halide. Who is my importer? We work through several different ones. One of the guys is eye-catching coral, and I'm hoping to have him on a video in the future, and we can talk about importing, and we can talk about wholesale and all that fun stuff. There's a lot that goes into what he does and how that relates to what corals are going to be available for even for stores. Like I think a lot is made of, oh, you need to to find a good source, and as long as you're able to find that good source, you're golden. Frankly, it's easy to find great coral, but the problem is a lot of times people can't afford great coral. There's certain types of corals at the wholesale level that literally cost 4 figures, so like over $1,000 wholesale for certain corals. And people sometimes starting out, they want to start into this, and their thinking is, oh, I'm only going to buy like the super high end stuff. There's two problems with that. Number one, super high end stuff costs a lot of money, like literally four figures, like I said. But problem number two is wholesalers don't need any help from you to sell their super high end stuff. Any monkey can sell that stuff. It sells itself. So if you're going to walk into a wholesaler's place and say, I want your 3 best corals, they're not going to sell it to you, because their success is how well they sell the bottom 90% of their stuff. So they simply won't even sell it to you, and they're going to save that for their best customers that buy literally tens of thousands of dollars worth of coral a year, because that's really their whole business. They don't need any help selling their best stuff. They use their best stuff to move their other stuff. So a lot of times, when people talk about, oh, if I could only find that person's supplier, don't worry about it. That stuff is just not a mystery most of the time. You can find the good corals. Whether or not they'll actually sell it to you, very different story. And whether or not you can really afford it starting out, very different story. Some of the best stuff I've ever seen, I can't sell. So I can't therefore buy it, because I can't, have a 5-figure credit card bill with no customer base to sell some of these super high-end items. So yeah, I'm very open as to, like, where I get certain corals from. A lot of times I get them from other hobbyists. Like some really, really, really good collector type hobbyists I work with, they really have the best stuff, because they've been cherry picking only the super high end for years. And there's a huge difference in quality coming from hobbyist versus coming from an importer. So had I the choice, it'd be like 100% hobbyist, because it's a lot better that way. But even amongst importers, they all have their different issues and challenges. So currently you're looking at 135. This is one of our rainbow paint splatter Trachyphyllias. Do you use ultra coral in Australia? I do not. Actually, that's another thing. We don't use any place where we can't go in person to shop. Hey, Dad. I'm making too much noise. All right. Number 36. Is another rainbow paint splattered trachea. There's going to be 4 of these in total, so if you like a particular coloration of these guys, you can kind of pick and choose which ones you like. The reminks are plate corals, good for beginners. Pretty good. You just have to make sure to put them on the substrate. If you put them on your rocks, what will happen a lot of times is that they'll maneuver themselves off of the rocks. They're actually capable of moving. So if they start scooting around, they'll fall off, and they might fall onto something else. So you do want to avoid that situation. We've always kept them on a sand bed, but I guess in the wild they are actually seen on rubble more so than just fine sand. So like I would say some combination of substrate of like kind of like the rough and medium coarse size, like coarse varieties might be the best. Okay, moving on. 137. So this is another of the trachees. These are by far my favorite variety of Trachyphyllia, because I love like the combination of colors. There's even like yellow fluorescent patches, there's pinks, there's greens, there's purples, there's blue, all sorts, all mixed together. And yeah, even some reds that I see. Next up, 138. I think this is the last one. Yeah. So it kind of like a recurring topic that we've been talking about was like a lot of pest related issues. There's a huge difference in the number of pests that come in from importing versus what you get from like an aquacultured source, like um, either a farm, but more importantly, like a really well manicured tank tends to have almost zero pest issues. Now you can never assume that somebody does not um, have pests. It's really 100% your responsibility to deal with pests as best you can on the front end through either like dipping, quarantine, that sort of thing. But you do run into a lot less of that, and it's because leading up to the importer, like the collecting, uh, that whole shipping, trans-shipping process, by the time that they get to the importer, those corals are in such rough shape that dipping them at that point um, it's probably too stressful. You'll lose a lot more corals straight off just from that process than anything. So a lot of importers, they do not do anything as far as pest control. They try to just manage the pests once they're in the system. And so a lot of times, when you purchase those guys, it's up to again for us to try to dip, to quarantine, and everything on our end. But even then, like I said, most dips do not do anything for eggs. So if there happens to be an egg on or some microbe on a particular coral, there's a good chance that it survives. And then so it becomes like a management issue even at the farm level. So once it gets then down to the individual hobbyist level, then they have to like do as much as they can to prevent. But now that essentially they've gone through three different stages now of prevention, and when they're successful and we purchase from them, it's a huge filter. I mean, nothing is 100%, but it makes it a lot easier to deal with pests the more stages of prevention that it goes through. How long do you dip for? It really depends. We try to do no more than about 20 minutes. And we use Coral RX pretty extensively here. Okay, 139. This is the neon green striped trachea, a little bit smaller. What's your favorite type of coral? I don't really have one. In the past, it's been Blastomussa. I've liked elegances for a long time. These days, I really don't think I have one. There's just so many. Pectinia are pretty cool. And we're going to see a couple of different Pectinia coming up soon. Arash, I support a Halloween sale. Yeah, I'm thinking about doing a Halloween sale. So, I should mention that since like a lot of you guys had kind of had to come in late because of some goofy notification error in YouTube. Sorry you guys didn't get the notification until later. But I'm thinking of doing one on the 31st for Halloween. So in 2 weeks we'll have another one. And just for future reference, we always start them at 3 p.m. Eastern. Just to keep that in mind. So Min Pang? Pang? Pai? Pang? Okay. Have you ever dealt with vermeted snails? Yes. We have vermeted snails very often. We take clippers and we just rip them out. Okay. Next up, we're at 140. This is another neon green striped trachea. John's Dragons, all the way from Australia. Welcome. That's probably where these trachees came from. Your neck of the woods. All right, finally. Noah, you can look at the Sinarina, number 141. This is our Voodoo Hologram Sinarina. This guy is like a mix of purple and green. And I think this light is the one we were always trying to figure out. Okay, so one of these lights is not like all the others, and we had the hardest time figuring out which one. There's one of these that has a different bulb combination, and I bet it's this guy here because he looks so different in person. You see almost no green. It's like this ridiculous like purplish thing going on. I think one of those bulbs is probably like a purple plus or some nonsense, and so you're not getting a very clean look. So all of the trachees, for example, this guy and the next 3 or 4 corals is going to look a little bit wonky. We tried to figure out which light it was before the start of the show. We couldn't tell, and now it's that one. Okay, 142. This is the tricolor Euphyllia. Yeah, so everything that you're seeing now looks a little bit more purple. Not my favorite look, but you can kind of compensate for that a little. The reminx, will there be some Euphyllia coming up soon? Yeah, I think so. Pretty soon. Within the next dozen corals. Can someone tell me what's in the coral in the background of my YouTube channel? What? Good luck. No, I think that he's asking about his YouTube channel. So, good luck. Alright. We're moving on. Yeah. So we're just moving our little setup here. Alright. So we're going to next be taking a look at some Pectinia. We've got 2. They're both the same type. They're both like these rainbow Pectinias. We very rarely get Pectinia. It's not that we don't see them. It's because most of the time they don't have spectacular coloration, and we're really only interested in the ones that have the spectacular colors. So that means we only see them a handful of times a year. They almost always come with very, very high price tags, even for us. And like I said, we're really only interested in the super nice ones, and super nice ones simply don't come around that often. This one is one of the nicer ones. It's got about 4 colors going on. Noah, is the Cinerina the same as the one on the website? It's the same variety, yes. And yes, they do look very different. They were photographed under a completely different combination of fluorescence. Yeah, like I said, that one that we just showed on stream looks nothing like what it does just looking from here to there. Okay, number 144. It's a smaller rainbow Pectinia. Russ Male Artist. What's the most detrimental elements from disease to stings that beginners should watch out for in dealing with different types of corals and pests? Like stings to people? Probably the most dangerous I can think of in terms of like people. It's like palytoxin that could literally put you in the grave. Like the LD50, lethal dose 50. So that means like if you dose a population, 50% of which will die, is I think like the lethal dose required for palytoxin is like in nanograms. It's like super small. So if you're handling like zoanthids and stuff like that, or Paleothoa, if you wanted to play it safe, I would recommend, gloves, that sort of thing. Sometimes people have allergic reactions to like carpet anemones, like especially large, sticky, stinging carpets. So like whenever you're handling those, you should remain covered up, because having an allergic reaction to that sort of thing can also like put you in the hospital. 145. We've got we have got quite a few scolies. This is the first one. This is a war paint scolemia. That war paint pattern is that purple, teal, and red streaks going radially outward. Scolemia for us tend to be pretty slow growing. You can feed them, and that typically gets them to grow a little faster. So if you kind of stay diligent with your feeding, they'll definitely get fleshier and more healthy. The skeleton itself, though, grows pretty slowly. Next up, 146. A bright green, emerald green Scolia. Next up, 147. So this we call the green halo. If you look carefully, you can see like that purple ring that's halfway, it goes like halfway in between like the inner portion of the polyp and that outer fleshy layer. The color itself is like a very, it's almost more blue than it is green. But the halo is probably the most interesting part about this particular Scolia. Next up, 148. This is the bleeding apple Scolia. So depending on the number of colors these have, that's usually the differentiator, whether it's like a master or a bleeding apple. Could we lighten that up just a little bit, Robbie? There we go. Thanks. So usually once it gets to about 4 colors is when it gets into master territory, and just like just how interestingly the pattern is. This one, since it only seems to have like 2 colors, it goes by that bleeding apple label. Justin, I'm just starting out my first reef tank with both dry rock and dry sand. How long would you say that you should cycle before getting my first coral? Pretty much the longer you can wait, the better. A typical cycle takes about like 1 to 2 months. So like once you kind of have your nitrates and all that stuff down, you can start experimenting a little bit with corals. But there is a lot to be said for a tank that's been aged for at least 12 months versus one that's been aged 3 months. So really, the longer you can wait, the better. But right around like the 2-month mark, as long as your chemical parameters are looking good, you can start looking at some of the hardier corals. Johns, are these types of corals mainly floor-based, or do they like a little bit more light at the top of the tank? Scolemia are definitely stuff that people put towards the bottom. They're most exclusively on the substrate or on rocks that are near the substrate. Will Scholemias do it all right on the sand? Yeah, people do it all the time. And welcome, Bay Area Aquatics. Okay, next up, 149. It's our war paint Scolia. So we started with the war paint, we ended with the war paint. This one I think has a little bit more vibrant coloration than the first one. Then again, they both might color up completely differently to be roughly the same thing. Oh, yeah, like Robbie just mentioned, they're under a different light, so that might also play a part in it. Like that, we're out from under the wonky colored fixture, and now we're back under a much better light. The light that we like is a combination of Aqua Blue Special and Blue Plus T5 lamps. Hey Rico's Reef, how's it going? Okay, next up, we have some small Australian elegances. There's going to be 3 in total, I believe. For the longest time, we didn't have very many elegances, and so the moment that we saw like some of these smaller ones show up, I think we bought like 20 something of them. Reminx, can you frag Scolies? Probably not. I've seen some people cut them in half, and usually what happens is you end up with like a semicircle looking piece that never regains its full shape. Half the time one of the 2 halves will die from infection. I've never found it to be something worthwhile to do, and they do cost a lot to begin with, so you're taking a pretty substantial risk for what I'm not really sure. So as far as I'm concerned, it's not really a coral that I would try to propagate. So yeah, so Rico, we're using mainly T5 fluorescence. We're using ATI Blue Pluses and Aqua Blue Specials. Pretty much anytime you see any photography from us, it's going to be under fluorescent rather than LED. LED does not shoot well at all. Okay, next up, 151. It's the second of our three elegances. I'm wondering if both of these fixtures have wonky lighting. Huh. Notes for next time, I guess. Okay, next up, number 153. Or wait, 152? Sorry, 152. Last of the small elegances. This one's kind of neat because it looks like it's got purple polyps where the previous ones had pink. There's always a little bit of variation when it comes to these elegances. Some have a different face coloration. Some of them are a little bit more bluish. Some of them are greenish. Rarely you get like a greenish yellow one. And their tips are usually either pink, purple, or green. Very rarely you get yellow polyps. Have you ever seen a yellow fox coral? I have not. I would worry that it were dyed. Sometimes there's like people overseas, they dye the corals and you get some kind of wacky coloration. Have you ever seen a blue hammer? We do, and we actually have blue hammers, but there might be one available on the website now that I think of it, but it may have sold. I'm not sure. We don't offer them very frequently, but yeah, they're more of like a sky blue. Is this only for the show, or do you keep them under those lights? We grow them under LED and sunlight, basically. We don't have a ton of T5 lighting for growth here, and that's because of our electrical situation. We just ran out of circuits and stuff like that. Otherwise, I would be more inclined to use a lot more T5 than LED for growth. If we ever did a new facility, it would be like mostly LED and T5, I'm guessing. Okay. Next up, number 153. In a bit. Why are Scolies so expensive? They're almost all from Australia, and pretty much anything coming from Australia is going to be expensive just because of the cost basis. I didn't know this before, but if you're a diver that's collecting coral in Australia, there's a very good chance that you're making close to 6 figures a year. And even then, the collection industry in Australia is having a hard time retaining those workers because of how much they're getting paid from like the mining industry. This is just something that I heard from one particular importer. So there's like a lot of competition for these people, and it's very difficult to even hold on to their good divers, even at $100,000 a year. So that's kind of surprising to me. So that's number one. If you're paying people $100,000 to go collect coral, your corals are going to be pretty expensive once they like get out of that water. So that immediately is going to be expensive. Obviously, getting those corals to the U.S. is going to be expensive. There's a lot to do with paperwork and like CITES permits, that sort of thing. There's a lot of die-off that happens in transit because Australia is quite a bit further than usual. But mainly it's the labor cost. And also, Australia tends to be one of the more dangerous places to go diving. There's a lot more activity. Now, I was thinking, well, maybe it's like shark related, but it's actually saltwater crocodile and snake related, I guess. There's a lot of sea snakes that are highly venomous, and I guess it is not the most uncommon thing in the world to get attacked by a saltwater crocodile. Which, if you look at like the animals that kill the most people's list, they're like right behind hippos as to how deadly they are. So yeah, it's very dangerous to go collecting these things. And where they collect a lot of these things, it's sometimes 16 hours from shore. So oftentimes like storms will just like prevent collection for months on end. because they just simply can't go out there, because once you're out there and you get caught in a storm, that's the end of it. So yeah, there's a lot of issues with collecting in Australia, which I'm sure my my importer friend can tell you more about in greater detail. One day, I'll have him on. 154. We're almost done. 160 is the last one. We're at 153. My bad. 153. Are we currently looking at 153?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go on to 154. This is the Aussie Neon Green Hammer. So when we have these things in our regular tanks, we have a lot of like blue actinic LED, and these things glow almost yellow. So you'll have to imagine like what you're seeing is green right now. The fluorescence is actually a lot more yellow than it is green. I know we call it a neon green hammer. That's kind of like the standard term for it, but when you see it with other things that are glowing green, it's much more on the yellow side. Ufaso Urias. Do hammers do good in a pico tank, 3 gallons or less? To be perfectly honest, I've never kept a pico tank, but what do you think, Robbie? Do you think hammers do okay in pico aquariums? Yeah, my worry is they might outgrow it, and there's also the risk of sweeper tentacles that could extend pretty much the entire 3-gallon aquarium. So you might run into aggression and size issues. So Thomas Stolberg, seen a few snakes and stuff like that. Never seen a croc. Very interesting you say that, because I've heard that one person that my collector works with, his collection agency hasn't been able to get any corals recently because one of their divers got killed by a croc. It's a story, but what he said about crocodiles is that that they're really, really smart, and they'll like scope. So if you pull up your boat, all the crocs the first time will just look at you. They'll just watch. They watch you dive. They watch you collect. And if you go back there before they forget about you, like let's say you return like a couple days later, it's like a bank heist. They know exactly where you're gonna be, and they come and kill you. So basically, these guys have to, whenever there's saltwater crocs, they have to go there, collect, and not come back for like 2 months. And I guess one allegedly may have come back too soon and got attacked by a crocodile. It might be a story. It might just be a story, but it's something that I heard. Just saying. 155. It's a slightly larger neon green hammer. There's a larger version of the previous. Next up, 156. This is a really large single head of a purple tip frog spawn. Now, I'm completely convinced now that both of these lighting fixtures have goofy T5 lighting in them, because you're seeing very little green, and you're seeing a lot more purple. The stalks of this are very clearly green looking to my eye with purple tips, whereas you're seeing mostly on screen purple on purple. Thomas, I have noticed that hammer corals can have really tight tentacles and some have really loose tentacles. Is this different species? Very likely. There's several different species of hammer corals. We kind of lump them all as Euphyllia and Cora, but there are a lot of different varieties. Some actually take on that hammer shape. Some take on more of like an anchor shape. Some of them almost look like torches because they don't have like a hammer shape at all, but they are still technically a type of a quote-unquote hammer coral. So different species has a lot to do with it. And also the appearance of hammer corals from geography to geography dramatically changes their appearance. The Australian ones are completely different from Indonesian ones. The Indonesian ones especially, they grow like 10 times faster, stuff like that. Okay, next up, 157. This is our yellow Yayamensis frog spawn. So just going from the two frog spawns, you can see just how different like their polyp structure is, or their tentacle structure, I should say. And at least this one looks purple and yellow like it should. The fluorescence is of those tips is very yellow. As far as frog spawn goes, these are my favorite, the yellow ones. Thanks, Zach. Good luck with your tank. Okay, 158. We have some bisma worm rocks. So the coral that these worms are living in is Porites. Porites is a somewhat slow-growing small polyp stony. They like medium to high light, pretty good amount of flow, and I always get asked if these guys reproduce, and I can't tell if they do or not. Yeah, the price is getting cut off. Sometimes like my label is too lengthy, so whenever I could catch it, I try to see. But sometimes, yeah, like the Yayamensis, I mean that's obviously going to be like a big word. But yeah, going back to these guys, I don't know if the worms reproduce, and I can never like keep count of them, so I'm not really sure in that regard. They do get larger though. I have seen them grow quite a lot. And they come in different colors, like some are black and white, some are blue, purple, yellow, that sort of thing. Okay, next up, 159. Another bisma worm rock. And these worm rocks, yeah, they pretty much stay like the same size. Like we don't ever notice them grow or anything like that. But then again, we don't keep them for years and years and years either. I'm also curious to see if these guys do better if you like constantly feed with like phytoplankton or something like that to keep the worms happy. For whatever reason, we don't go out of our way to feed these worms. But I'm curious to see if that would improve their size or coloration. And we are at the very end. We're at 160. So we decided to end on one of my favorite corals that we got recently. We're offering the entire colony of this Ultra Acan Lord, and it has this really cool like peppermint candy type pattern. And it's a mix of purple, pink, red, and that teal colored banding. I'd say the entire colony together is probably about 4 or 5 inches. Excuse me. And it's got, I don't know, 30 to 40 polyps or something like that. You can count them in your own time. But yeah, it's one of the more stunning Acanthastria lordhowensises that we've seen. And that pretty much does it for our live sale. Hope you guys had a good time. We've went now for almost 3 hours. My throat is like super duper ultra sore. So I'm probably going to take a break. Thanks all for joining. Yeah, and again, I apologize for that whole YouTube notification thing. I'm not really sure what that was all about. Usually they've been pretty spot on. Oh, stream died. So I don't know. Let me know if my stream is dead or if it's like rest in pepperoni. So let me know if you see me back again. I am kind of curious. Yay, I'm back. Okay, well this is item number 160 that you're looking at. This is our last one. Goodbye. Here, I'll put the previous label up. It's an Acan Lord colony. It's probably got 30 to 40 polyps. Pretty sweet. Yeah, I don't know like how much of the stream died. Did it die at 159? And then we just got to 160? Yay. Yeah, well, thanks for attending, you guys. Yeah, I don't know what happened to the stream. Sometimes, like, who knows? There's a lot of things that could go wrong in this process. Yeah, there could be a blizzard outside, knowing our Ohio weather. But yeah, thanks all for joining. We've gone for like a good 3 hours now. My throat is toast. I don't know how these video stream guys go for like 12 hours, 24 hours. I don't even know how you do that. That's insane. Like I do 3 hours and I'm pretty coarse. Okay, so it died at the second Bisma Worm Rock, which was 159. And yeah, so this is the last one at 160. So yeah, thanks all for attending. Yeah, sorry about like YouTube with that notification thing. That was very bizarre. Like, so I think a lot of you may have missed the first part of the stream. So yeah, go back and take a look at that if you're interested in anything in particular. And I think the next stream is going to be on the 31st. So everybody get out your Halloween costumes and we'll have a good time. All right. Take care, you guys. Enjoy the rest of the weekend.